On this edition of Sightings, in the 1950s, high-level officials at a super-secret military base conducted radical experiments that produced startling new technology.
Our immediate reaction to each other was, my gosh, those are flying saucers. Those things really do exist.
One mystery lingers. Where did the saucer designs come from?
A lot of people say they're from deep space.
Then, a violent accident left this woman with the ability to solve crimes.
It's almost like I've become the victim because I can see through their eyes.
Later, behind the beauty of the Bahamas, beware of the forbidden religion called Obeah.
It is definitely part of voodoo.
Plus, his life changed in an instant. Now he says he's not the same man, and his family agrees.
There was no question in their mind but what a totally different soul was inhabiting that body.
And a sightings update. The people of Mexico City continue to document the story of the century.
Welcome to Sightings. I'm Tim White. The archetypal unidentified flying object is the flying saucer. Reports of convex, disc-shaped objects are the most common type of UFO sighting. Many ufologists point to the shape as an indication of their extraterrestrial origins. But Sightings has uncovered information that many governments, including our own, have designed and tested flying saucers.
Major Keyhole, as author of the book Flying Saucers Are Real, what is your opinion of these new sightings of unidentified objects?
With all due respect to the Air Force, I believe that some of them will prove to be of interplanetary origin.
Flying saucers have invaded our planet.
In the 1950s, nearly every science fiction movie featured flying saucers hell-bent on interplanetary destruction. Looking back today, these encounters seem comical, even ridiculous. But it's important to remember that at the time, many Americans felt that flying saucers like these were a real threat.
At that time, I realized that certainly we were not the only civilization in this universe or galaxy.
The first known flying saucer sighting was reported in June 1947 by pilot Kenneth Arnold, who saw several disc-shaped craft. And 3 weeks later, there was a mysterious crash near Roswell, New Mexico.
My dad had special training in investigating aircraft accidents, and he knew what he was looking at. And what he saw was not a normal aircraft.
As a child, Dr. Jesse Marcel saw with his own eyes debris from the crash site. His father, an Army intelligence officer, brought some of the wreckage home the night of the crash.
He brought the debris in, we looked at it, spread it out on the kitchen floor. There was this like a black plastic Bakelite material. There was metal foil, and then there were I-beams that had a purplish symbol written across the margin of it.
The end of World War II and the emergence of flying saucer sightings may be more than a coincidence, according to some aviation experts who believe many saucers have an earthly origin.
The Germans had been working on a disc-shaped aircraft at the end of World War II that would have been brought to the United States. And then our engineers, you might say, made a better model of that craft.
There is evidence that as early as 1941, German engineers had successfully built and tested sophisticated aircraft resembling flying saucers. After the war, some of Germany's top aeronautical designers moved to America, Great Britain, and the Soviet Union. Did they bring their saucer plans with them? Apparently they did. This is rare, declassified footage of a saucer-shaped craft built and tested by the U.S. Air Force and dubbed the Avro car. A sightings investigation unearthed the original Avro car prototype, forgotten in an obscure hangar just outside Washington, D.C.
The Avro car was developed in the late 1950s as an experimental test vehicle for vertical takeoff and landing aircraft. They had intended to create an aircraft which would fly at regular aircraft altitudes and speeds in excess of 300 miles an hour.
Now you can say they were built by aliens, or you could say that they were built by humans, you know. And it's most likely that one of the major governments in the world, Soviet, American, British, had built something like that.
There are other indications that the military had ambitious plans for the flying saucer design. The film you're watching is not science fiction. It is a rarely seen Air Force training film.
Fire the ultimate weapon. This isn't fantasy, nor is it necessarily a faithful look at the future, for new discoveries may alter our course.
In addition to films and documents, there are a few eyewitnesses who have dared to speak publicly. In 1967, at MacDill Air Force Base in Florida, Jack Pickett and a friend made a startling discovery.
We were near a restricted area of the base, and all of a sudden we saw 4 aircraft parked out there, and our immediate reaction to each other was, my gosh, those are flying saucers. Those things really do exist.
As publisher of the base newspaper, Pickett asked for permission to write an article and publish photos of the flying saucers he had seen.
I was called up to the Adjutant General's office. He went over to a file cabinet and got out a whole bunch of photographs. And he proceeded to lay these photographs out on a large table so that I could look at them. Well, of course, my interest perked up instantly when I began to see literally hundreds of photographs of all types of quote-unquote flying saucers.
George Filer is a former Air Force intelligence officer who has interviewed Jack Pickett. He believes Pickett's story is genuine and very significant.
A lot of people say, well, how can something be kept secret for 50 years? Well, I point out that the F-117 stealth fighter was kept secret for approximately 10 years. And most of us didn't know that it existed until the government released the information.
I pointedly asked him, not only are these where the flying saucers stories came from, is this what they were? And he said, yes. Well, I was awestruck. I couldn't really believe I was seeing what I was seeing. Some of those photographs had many, many aircraft in them, and they were all easily identifiable as Air Force photographs are. And I asked him, well, how high and how fast could these things go? You hear all these stories. And he said, well, this particular aircraft could go fast enough and high enough to actually achieve space flight. And I had no idea when he was telling me this story that wouldn't be too long before they were declared non-existent.
Interestingly, in the days just before Pickett's discovery of the saucers at MacDill, there had been a rash of UFO sightings in the area. Were the two events connected? We may never know, because not only was Jack Pickett denied access to the saucer photos, the Air Force began to deny their very existence.
This is an illustration of one of the largest ones parked down there. In fact, it was the largest. It was nearly 100 feet across. Yes, hello.
22 years after his initial sightings, Pickett has launched a one-man campaign to have the saucer photos, if not declassified, at least acknowledged.
When I initially wrote, I began to get answers back. They didn't have the faintest idea of what I was talking about. I got letters from high-ranking officers that they had no record of such an aircraft ever existing. So I knew that it was top secret again.
But why maintain secrecy about a 2-decade-old project using World War II technology? Some researchers believe it's because flying saucer projects are still ongoing, and that the technology to build them has not come from a foreign country, but from a foreign civilization. Ufologists believe that the crash at Roswell was not the result of a military saucer project, but the birth of one. That wreckage from Roswell was transported to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base for a reason.
Wright-Patterson had something unique to our government, and that was the Technical Intelligence Organization, so-called T2, or what became the Foreign Technology Division. This is the sort of division that would have been appropriate to use for the investigation of UFO research.
In fact, in the years following the Roswell incident, 3 former government employees who had worked at Wright Field all applied for U.S. patents for flying saucers. But it would be nearly 40 years before any government employee would state publicly that not only does the military test flying saucers, but that they have been created by stealing technology from captured extraterrestrial craft. In a rare interview for Sightings, aerospace engineer Bob Lazar claimed that he had been part of a team charged with reverse engineering a flying saucer of unknown origin at Area 51 in Nevada.
Our job was basically to look at these recovered discs, and I say recovered because I don't know really where they came from, whether they were given to us, we found them, shot them down, who knows what. But our group basically was to back engineer them, which means to start with a finished product and go backward and see how it was fabricated, and try and duplicate some of that technology with earthly materials.
The question is no longer, do they exist? Strange experimental craft are being piloted through our atmosphere. The new question is, how many of them are ours? How many of them were created by the sweat of human endeavor? And are any the earthly cousins of a captured extraterrestrial craft?
So there's something out there that people are seeing. And the question, of course, is who do they belong to? A lot of people say they're from deep space, you know, but they could just as easily be from this world.
The saucer shape, although predominant in science fiction, represents only a small part of UFO designs. There have been numerous documented sightings of cones, cylinders, and spheres with propulsion patterns that no one, including former military engineers, can recreate.
Coming up, a violent accident left this woman with startling psychic abilities.
The trauma allows the psychic information to get to the surface.
Most psychics believe that the power to communicate telepathically and see into the future is innate. It's something that we're all born with, and like any ability, has to be developed and exercised. But a few psychics believe that they received strange new powers after one specific traumatic event.
I was in a car and it's like I passed out. My foot went down on the accelerator. I had all kinds of trauma to my head. This side of my face was all black. It was almost like you take a pencil and draw down my nose, and I had glass in this eye, and it was just, the whole side of my head was just a mess.
After her accident, Joyce Martin's body was battered, but strangely, her mind was in sharper focus than ever. She suddenly had the ability to locate missing persons.
It may be just something about the trauma, whether it's electrical trauma or accident trauma or whatever, that shakes up the brain or changes something that we don't understand yet, but allows the psychic information to get to the surface.
Neurologist Dr. Michael Persinger believes that most people who have had head trauma experience some type of heightened psychic ability. He believes these experiences occur here, in the brain's temporal lobes.
Some of the experiences that a person has after even mild traumas to the temporal lobes would be the sensations of déjà vu, the sensations of precognitive sensations, and also one of the most compelling features that take place after a trauma is the sensation of enhanced psychical capacities, where the person suddenly knows for reasons that they aren't clear of.
It's almost like I can tune in to the victim, and I can see through their eyes. It's almost like I become the victim because I can feel the pain.
Within months of her accident, Martin's remarkable new abilities were called upon during the search for Tucson Girl. Vicki Lynn Hoskinson was abducted while running an errand on her bicycle. She was 8 years old.
I heard on the car radio that she was missing, and I drove to the area that Vicki Lynn had been abducted. And when I got over there, I knew that she had gone over the top of her bicycle, that the car had hit the back of the bicycle, and that her hands were in dirt, that she had skinned her hands.
Martin contacted Police Sergeant Leroy Proctor, a detective from a neighboring county.
I don't necessarily believe in psychics, but the information that I received from her on the telephone was so accurate that I became very interested in talking to her in person.
Skeptical but desperate, Sergeant Proctor agreed to meet with Joyce Martin.
We went out to Ina Road, and as we got just past Wade, there's a big dip. And in the middle of the dip is where my whole body would just start sobbing like a little child sobs after they've been crying for a long time. And it was something I couldn't control at all. and I directed Leroy to go out to the end of Ina. I knew she was out there.
She led me to the intersection, basically, of Ina and Wade. She made me stop, and she looked over to the right, and she says, "This really looks like it. This is what I see." We got out of the car, and we looked around, and she says, "I cannot understand why she's not here."
In her psychic visions, Martin had seen a windmill, an old wagon, and a barn. All of these clues were found in the vicinity of Ina and Wade. Police searched the area but found nothing until 7 months later, when Vicki Lynn's remains were finally found within 100 feet of that intersection.
If I knew then what I know now, yes, I would have got her involved earlier. I would have listened to her more.
Vicki Lynn's father, Ron Huskinson, regrets that he did not listen sooner to Joyce Martin's psychic clues.
If they would have went by our hunch and we would have known exactly where to look, we'd have been a lot better off.
I don't know how this works. I don't know how to stop it. I don't know how to start it. I've never really thought that it was because I had a bump on the head.
But there is mounting evidence suggesting that this is precisely what did happen.
Injuries can result in a restructuring of the temporal lobes, and the person's capacities to have psychical experiences are actually enhanced.
We have no idea what the physiology of the psychic experience is. I don't think we can ignore the fact that trauma seems to be associated with certain psychic abilities, but it's not the whole answer.
If the accident had not occurred, no way would I be doing this. I don't know what I would be doing, but I know I would not be sitting here today.
Neuroscientist Michael Persinger has successfully recreated near-death, out-of-body, and alien abduction experiences by stimulating the temporal lobes of volunteer subjects. He theorizes that people who have these experiences outside the laboratory may have a brain chemistry that somehow naturally stimulates their temporal lobes.
Next on Sightings, he was near death when a new soul entered his body and transformed his life.
The light went through me, and when I woke up, I was a different person.
People who have been near death report many kinds of paranormal experiences. After a miraculous recovery, a few individuals claim that they now have unexplained powers or abilities. And they believe these supernatural gifts were bestowed upon them by ancient souls that have walked in and taken over the physical body. It's a strange story. A man named Raymond dies. At the same moment, Jason is born. Raymond and Jason are two separate souls, but this man believes they have both inhabited his body. He has no scientific proof, only an undying personal conviction. In 1977, Raymond Winters was told by his doctors that he was dying of cancer, and he had no more than 3 months to live. But Winters is still alive because he believes that during surgery he experienced the phenomenon known as soul exchange and became a walk-in.
While the operation was going on, I suddenly found myself conscious, and suddenly a bright light was coming towards me, a brilliant light. The light went through me, and suddenly I heard the nurse screaming, "More anesthetic, he's coming to." And when I woke up from that operation and had that vision, I was a different person. I looked at my wife. I couldn't believe that she was my wife. I had changed so much she couldn't believe I was her husband.
A walk-in is an advanced soul who, through previous lifetimes, has earned the right, if he wants to take over the role of a walk-in.
Author Ruth Montgomery is a leading expert on the soul exchange phenomenon. She has written 3 books on the subject and has interviewed hundreds of supposed walk-ins.
And a walk-in comes in when a person is so discouraged, so unable to cope with life anymore that he wants to leave, or he's in a near-death experience, or sometimes clinical death on the operating table. Then a walk-in can replace that soul.
Jeanette Walsh was married to Raymond Winters. She found it difficult to cope with her husband's paranormal experience.
He asked if I would start calling him Jason, and it was kind of hard to go from calling him Ray to Jason.
The body was the same, but the man was different. He would not accept his doctor's dire prognosis. Raymond, now Jason, was convinced that he could survive his cancer. A strange force drew him to the Far East, where he searched for an herbal cure.
I got out of bed and I went on a trip. I got special permission from Singapore Airlines to get on a plane because I was wrapped in bandages. They thought I would die on the plane. I had to sign forms.
He wanted to go to the east to look for these different herbs, which is what we did. We traveled all over to find them, and he found them. And then we came back to the States, and he started making all of these different drinks. From that point on, he got better with tremendous speed, and people started to notice the difference. And I would come home from work, and there would be people, sick people, sitting all around my apartment. And there would be Jason giving out this tea and sitting there talking to them and counseling them and hugging them and everything.
There was no question in their mind but what a totally different soul was inhabiting that body. After he began his profession of seeking out the herbs, he was able to heal himself.
Today, Jason Winters' tea is sold worldwide, and many people believe he has saved their lives. But success for Jason meant losing the woman Raymond had once loved.
My wife and I had to get a divorce. To this day, I can't even remember marrying her.
Nearly every walk-in that I've ever known, and by now I've known a lot of them, has shortly afterwards gone through a divorce. And when we think about it, it's really logical, because it's not the person that man or woman fell in love with or asked to marry.
It wasn't like he just had a personality change, but every single thing about him changed.
Jason's son, Robin Winters, struggled to accept the man his father had become. He found an answer after contacting psychic Susan Staples.
I went to see her, and she went into a trance. She didn't have any idea who I was. She went into a trance, and suddenly she said in a deep voice, "Jason is here, and he wants to speak to you." And I said, "What do you mean, Jason? I'm Jason." She said, "No, a big, dark gentleman is standing beside you. He is your walk-in, and he wants to talk to you."
My father found out who the walk-in presence was, and that was through a psychic. And the person was an Indian, I guess. And it was back in the 30s, and he was a medical doctor.
She started telling me about why I was going to India all the time and standing under the gateway of India when I had no reasons to go there. I just kept going back there all the time. And then I found out that this is where the walk-in that is part of me now, the herbalist, the healer, the medical doctor, he was shot there in 1935. The most astounding thing about this happened. He was shot on the 13th of September, 1935, my birthday.
Jason Winters believes that his walk-in has given him a second chance. His two sons support their father's new life as a healer.
As a result of this whole experience, my whole family's life has changed in a dramatic fashion. We have gone from having what seemed like a pointless, useless direction to really helping people and touching a lot of people with my father's story.
Jason Winters is one of my favorite examples of a walk-in. He's developed all of these different alternative medicines that have helped thousands and perhaps, as I said, millions of people. And he's become a positive, productive person who has certainly contributed to the good of humanity.
We mustn't think negative. We've got to think positive, positive, positive all the time. It's unnatural to be unhealthy, natural to be healthy. And if you want the secret of success, go out, help people, start smiling.
Another man who was said to believe that he had been transformed by a walk-in was former Egyptian President Anwar Sadat. Sadat believed that the new soul that he received pushed him toward his eventual commitment to peace in the Middle East.
Next on Sightings, inside the world of Obeah, the forbidden religion of the Bahamas.
It is definitely part of voodoo.
Then, a Sightings UFO update from Mexico City. And later, can we all learn to live disease-free?
There are a number of smaller religions that worship the power of the curse. Among them is the practice of Obeah. In the Bahamas, this voodoo sect is so feared, it's been outlawed. When a sightings investigative team traveled to the Bahamas to investigate Obeah, they were told not to do the story. They were warned that the evil power of Obeah is far-reaching and deadly.
If they pick your food and eat it while that bottle there, they'll die.
They all believe in Obeah. There's no doubt about it.
Cat Island in the Bahamas is a tropical paradise. But beneath the surface beauty of emerald lagoons and white sand beaches is a mysterious undercurrent of Obeah. Few here have escaped its power, and fear of that power has led the government to ban it. Islanders keep their religious practices to themselves. Few will speak of it, even fewer will explain it. And yet its power is palpable. Many paranormal researchers who have studied the island believe that it's haunted, perhaps by the vengeful spirits of those who were enslaved here after its discovery by Christopher Columbus. 81-year-old Frances Armbruster, known to all as Mrs. A, has a profound respect for the dark power of Obeah. She came to Cat Island in the early 1960s, and for the past 30 years has seen many signs that the outlawed religion is widely practiced here. Obeah has even hit home, literally. The Armbruster house has burned twice. The last time it almost killed her.
I was burned 65% of my body. We lost everything.
The cause of the fires has never been determined, but Mrs. A believes it's related to a curse placed on her home and business.
And they were standing in front of the store and the air was just thick. I knew something was wrong. And I said, what's the matter with you people? And finally Agnes piped up and said, somebody put an Obeah in your store. I went in the store and I looked in the drawer and there was a Bahamian bill and a U.S. bill, dollar bill, and a rear end of a dead rat with blood and guts and everything. And I went to Mildred. Now Mildred was my cook and supposedly one of the biggest witches on the island, but she never would admit it. And she said, you take this object out of the drawer and you make a cross all the way across the drawer with a thick layer of salt, and then pour kerosene or gasoline over it, and then take it down to the beach, put it in the water, and set it on fire. And if it floats away and the smoke goes out to sea, you're safe. If it comes back onto the bay, you're in trouble.
Although Mildred never admitted she was a witch, a strange incident shortly after her death convinced Mrs. A and others that Mildred had supernatural powers.
And as Mildred died this night, we was in the kitchen cooking, I and my daughter, Beth, sitting side by side.
There was a pot on the stove and it had she had a big heavy lid on it, and that all of a sudden it lifted itself off the stove and came flying across the room straight at her head.
And my daughter only had to dodge her head and mark the sign of the cross in her face, and the platter fall on the ground to her feet. Now I and her get scared, and we run out of the kitchen because we know then it was Mildred.
They would not come back. They never set foot in that kitchen again.
Obeah has its roots in a number of ancient African religions. When members of these religions were enslaved and forcibly shipped to the Americas, they kept their beliefs secret and continued to practice in private.
Wherever they came, they brought their own religious ideas, like the old African religion of voodoo. And they also found different circumstances, and so they adapted their African religious ideas to those different circumstances.
On Cat Island, practicing Obeah is against the law, and we found few people who were willing to share any of its secrets with us. Islanders told us that Iva is a walking encyclopedia on the ancient practice of Obeah. With some reluctance, she showed our sightings team this bottle filled with graveyard dirt, hair, fingernails, urine, garlic, and a lily, the flower of death. We asked her about the significance of this talisman.
Once they see a bottle in the tree, they know you have something in that bottle. And if they pick your food and eat it while that bottle there, the belly gets swelled and they'll die.
The power of the curse is worshipped above all else, and its ability to cause suffering and even death is very real.
The spirits can be provoked to do justice, and justice sometimes means doing bad to your enemies. And through curses, you can make spirits do bad things to your enemy.
That's how Iva explains the death of a local man who picked fruit from a tree protected by an Obeah bottle.
And he died with a belly like this, like he was ready to have baby. So Job Farrington is in the grave right now for on the counter picking people things and see the bottle up in the tree.
Frances Armbruster has also been touched by the dark side of Obeah. Although she is not a believer, she respects those who are. When a 16th century treasure chest was discovered on her property, Mrs. A heeded the warning of an Obeah witch not to open it.
It sits closed and as a conversation piece.
Although Obeah uses curses for evil purposes, practitioners insist the religion believes in the essential goodness of humankind.
African religions don't worship the dark forces, but they do know that the dark forces exist, and they recognize that there are people within the religious culture that know how to use these dark forces.
Practitioners of Obeah believe that they are being unfairly singled out by a government that does not understand the complexity of their religion. While they admit that there are black magic rituals, Obeah practitioners also perform healings, curse removals, and other forms of white magic.
Coming up next, a sightings update from Mexico City. Videotape continues to surface from the largest UFO flap in history.
Since 1991, there have been more than 1,000 UFO sightings over Mexico City. At first, attempts to document the phenomena were amateurish and inconsistent. But as the flap has continued, a more thorough and coordinated effort to document the sightings is underway. It's a grassroots movement that's gaining momentum and credibility. With UFO sightings like this one occurring nearly every week, citizen groups are forming all over Mexico, with support and training provided by several colleges and universities. They are learning how to recognize and document genuine UFOs.
There are also some diamond-shaped forms, red in color, that are suspended over the mountain, and all of a sudden they become long, and then all of a sudden diamond-shaped again. Then they disappear.
We went to my sister-in-law's home. All of a sudden, I thought I was looking at a cloud, and I saw a yellow light. It got closer to us.
Among the experts participating in these field seminars is Demetrio Faria, who maintains Mexico's largest library of UFO footage. A former safari leader, he's now after a different kind of big game.
My experience as an observer starts back in a time when I dedicated myself to being in the field hunting animals. But now, what I am trying to capture on camera and on video are UFOs.
Faria has made a thorough study of conventional aircraft and their flight patterns, so he can distinguish them at a glance from true UFOs.
You need to see them to look for them and know what to look for. The shine, the intensity of the shine, and the movement that these machines have.
As more amateur ufologists are trained in his technique, an impressive videotape database is being developed.
He would teach me how to look at the sky. He would show me his videos that he had already recorded. He would tell me how I had to sharpen my vision to be able to distinguish those objects, since they are very small.
First record them on video and study them to be able to compare later a real one from a false one.
I spent about 7 months looking at the sky and wasn't able to record anything. Then it took me about 2 more months before I was able to obtain the first video.
The number of UFO videos shot in Mexico is overwhelming. When the computer science department at El Grupo Sol, a Mexican state university, was asked to analyze the footage, Professor Victor Quesada was hesitant.
I didn't buy into the phenomenon. I thought that many of the videos were falsifications, utilizing a methodology known in computer lingo as multimedia.
But when Professor Quesada, his colleagues and students began looking at the UFO footage, a startling pattern was instantly visible. Computer enhancements of the supposed UFOs could not be matched to enhancements of any conventional aircraft.
At that point, we weren't as skeptical. We said, let's take advantage of what we know and let's try to look for the truth on our own. And then the university backed us up.
Professors approached the university with an unusual proposal. They wanted to conduct formal classes in the study of the Mexican UFO phenomenon. Surprisingly, permission was granted, and the classes filled quickly.
My interest in all of this changed to understand a little more about the truth. In reality, there is a lot of photographic material and video material that really makes you think that there is something out there.
I decided to do field research with a group of students and professors, and we started to see phenomena in the heavens that were inexplicable.
I noticed that there were strange things. We saw lights, very rare lights, and lights that could not be categorized as a star or categorized as an airplane.
For the students and faculty at El Grupo Sol, what started out as a purely technical exercise has become a topic for not only scientists, but also philosophers.
It would be of great interest to me to be able to have in my hand the most advanced technology, the most advanced resources, to be able to have the most information.
I believe in the efforts that the universities make, that the individuals make, that the governments make, in order to find the truth to this phenomenon. If it is the case that it really exists, we should be able to establish contact with him. The good thing would be that this would have a positive effect for mankind.
Sightings is one of the few American organizations to take an active and scientific interest in the Mexico City UFOs. With our Mexican contacts, we are compiling and analyzing new videotapes just now coming in. And we'll have those tapes for you on an upcoming program.
Next on Sightings, this woman identifies illness through intuition.
Financial stress won't cause you to have earaches. It'll blow apart your lower back.
Carolyn Mace is a medical intuitive who believes that you can learn to detect the presence of illness before your body sends you any physical warning signs. By teaching people how to psychically diagnose illness, they can begin healing much sooner than is normally possible.
I have a very unusual ability with a very unusual skill. It's probably a talent more than a skill. I was born with it.
Carolyn Mace is not a doctor or a nurse, but she does have a remarkable track record for diagnosing hidden illnesses. Since childhood, Mace believes that she has had a gift to detect physical and emotional illness before any outward symptoms appear.
One day, I went after I was in high school, and I went after work to meet my mom at the grocery store. And the clerk was standing at the cash register, and as I walked by, her husband came in. I received the impression that Elmer was going to die very soon. And 6 weeks later, Elmer was found dead. He had hung himself.
Carolyn Mace didn't begin to develop her intuitive diagnostic powers until years later. In 1984, Mace met alternative therapies pioneer Dr. C. Norman Shealy. A month after the two were introduced, Dr. Shealy consulted Mace over the phone about one of his patients.
I would give her the patient's name and age, that's all she needs, and tell her nothing else. And then I say, what do you see is wrong?
All I remember is instantly impressions began to come into my head. I said, there's concrete in the person's throat. I didn't know how to use physiological language at the time. But he would take my imagery and convert it. He says concrete, and he says this person has esophageal cancer.
Some of Carolyn's diagnoses have been absolutely remarkable. She is extremely accurate. Now, she's only 93% accurate. That makes her, overall, the most accurate person that I've personally tested out of about 100 intuitive people that I've worked with.
Mace and Dr. Shealy's successful blending of the psychic and the scientific has led them to share their alternative techniques in a series of seminars. Here, people learn that they can often heal themselves by using their own intuition.
Medical intuition, to me, is being able to know what is wrong with someone or the cause of what's wrong with them without necessarily having scientific facts to tell you where that answer came from. It's a spontaneous knowing.
Medical intuition is the ability to evaluate a person's energy in order to assess the quality of that person's health.
Mace believes that the physical body is surrounded by its own electromagnetic energy field. This field is created not only by an individual's body chemistry, but also by their attitudes, emotions, and spirituality.
As the years went by, I started to observe that illness had patterns. In other words, there were certain psychological stresses that were specific to every single illness we developed. There's no such thing as a random illness, none whatsoever. And then I began to realize that the body, in fact, was actually designed as a type of power system, that we have 7 different levels of power that are inherent in human biology.
The 7 levels Mace describes correspond to the 7 power centers known in Far Eastern philosophy as the 7 chakras.
The chakras are the body's computers, because each one warehouses data so specific. They warehouse data just like a computer does. Your 4th chakra, or your 4th computer, is your emotional territory, all of your information on love, forgiveness, bitterness, jealousy. And when a woman finds out, for example, that perhaps her marriage isn't working, or her husband's been cheating on her, 9 out of 10 women, at least the women I meet, and I meet thousands of them, will deny it or try to figure out some way to live with it. These types of emotional issues or traumas in the extreme get warehoused in breast tissue and become breast cancer.
To Mace, the lower back pain that afflicts millions of Americans can be traced to spiritual, not physical trauma.
Financial stress won't cause you to have earaches. It won't give you a sore throat. What it will do is it'll blow apart your lower back, because that's where financial stress lives in the body. Your biography is indeed your biology.
Rewriting your biography to improve your own biology is what Mace tries to impart to those who seek the secret to self-healing.
I think the greatest problem that medicine ever created was when it separated the body and the mind and the spirit, because you can't. I think that to deny the spiritual, in my opinion, is malpractice.
Health is a matter of power. So it's better to have attitudes that bring you power. Positive attitudes, faith, feeling good about yourself, because that empowers your heart, your mind, your spirit, your biology.
Dr. Sheely and Carolyn Mace both believe that using medical intuition is not a cure-all or replacement for conventional treatment. But they do believe that self-awareness and taking responsibility for your own health are the first steps towards complete wellness.
Thanks to overwhelming viewer response, Sightings will expand its America Online area beginning June 1st. Keyword Sightings when you log on for access to Sightings stories, images, and events. And you can still reach us 24 hours a day at 1-900-933-SIGHT. That's 1-900-933-7444.
Until next time, remember, no mystery is closed to an open mind. For Sightings, I'm Tim White.